Welcome everyone to Daf Yomi, 1 week at a time. This is Masechet Batra, and today we are going to be reviewing Daf 113 through 119. This is our 17th class in the longest Masechet of Shas. Okay, we are going to continue speaking about inheritance law. And we are in the middle of the topic, but in a few daf, we're actually going to get a Mishnah that's going to explain it more clearly. And as you saw, we have a lot of pictures to coming up. So, okay, so let's jump in. We are on daf 113, and we were talking about a husband who inherits his wife, and that's only the things that she owns at the time. Meaning, if the wife dies, the husband gets any property that she owns, but not something that she will inherit in the future. Right? In Hebrew, the term is muchzak, from the word chazaka, or right, himachzika, things that she owns versus ra'ui. Ra'ui means what's fitting, what she's going to own, right? So, and we're going to see this throughout today's discussion, that the person inheriting only inherits what the person owned, the deceased owned, not what they were going to inherit in the future. Okay, and this is based on a verse, and this is, and we'll see more about this as we can continue. And so we're also going to talk about people, right, inheriting from their grandparent. And also, we learned last week that a nephew inherits his uncle. And we're going to see this again in a little bit, but the nephew inherits the uncle, but not the nieces. And then the Gemara says, wait a minute, not the nieces? And then the Gemara says, you're right. It doesn't mean that it's not the niece, but the nephew comes first. And then if there's no nephew, so then the niece is going to inherit, right? We're going to see this again in two dapim. We're going to see it more clearly, but the boys are always going to inherit before the girls. But it doesn't mean that the girls will never inherit, meaning if there's no brother and if there's no son and there's only a daughter, the daughter will inherit. Then the Gemara says that based on a verse, we only give out inheritance during the day, not at night. And the reason for this is because it's like a judgment, it's like court. And therefore, we know, and we've learned before, that you can only have a court case during the day and not at night. Okay, let's say a person is on their deathbed and he tells the people to give out his estate. So if there are 3 people in the room listening, so they can write it down and they can be the witnesses to testify that this is what he said. Or, now again, we have 3 people. So 3 people are actually judges, right? We know that the minimum size of a court is 3. So if there are 3 people there, they can actually be the judges and they can actually give out the estate on their own. They have the power to give out the estate because they are 3 people. If there are only 2 people, so then they're only witnesses. And then, as we said, they write it down, they take it to court, and then the court will distribute the estate. And as we said, all of this happens during the day. But if it was at night, they can only be witnesses because, as we said before, there's no judgment, right? There's no court that sits at night, even if there are 3 people, if it's during the nighttime. So then they can only be witnesses, but not judges. Okay, Daf 114 tells us that when you're doing an act of acquisition, this one is called kinyan chalipin. We've had this before. Kinyan chalipin is where one person picks up an object, and when they do that, the other person acquires the other thing. That's called kinyan chalipin. They're basically almost bartering. I get this, you get that. So the question is, till when can you retract this deal? So the Gemara tells us, as long as the people are still sitting together discussing this matter, or maybe as long as not only that they have to be sitting together, but they have to still be discussing the matter. If they've moved on to a different issue, so then you can't retract the deal anymore. This is based on the case, again, with a person on their deathbed, and he says that they should do this judgment. So as long as they're still discussing, he can change things around. But if they stop discussing this topic, so then that's it, he can't change his mind. We learned last week that a son inherits his mother and not the opposite, right? And not that the mother inherits the son. So too with the husband. Remember we said the husband inherits the wife doesn't inherit the husband. If the son died and then the mother dies, so then the inheritance doesn't go to his brother from his father, because he died before the mother died. Daf 115 tells us that a woman does inherit her son. So the Gemara says, wait a minute, we just said, our Mishnah said that a mother does not inherit her son. So this is based on Rabbi Zechariah, which we had before. He says that the sons and the daughters split, and not that the son takes precedence. Again, as we said before, the nephews get before the nieces. And as we said, Rabbi Zechariah says that they actually split it equally. And how do we know this? Right? The word tribes in the verse teaches that a son inherits his mother before the daughter. Right? Again, the mother, we knew this about the father, but also if the mother dies, the son inherits before the daughter. Right? The daughter inherits her parents, but doesn't inherit from her child, right? Meaning the son doesn't bequeath his inheritance to his mother, but the mother, who is the daughter of her parents, does inherit from her parents. Okay, now we are going to go through the inheritance law, okay, so let's go to our pictures. Hold on one second. Okay, here we go. So, okay, so I know for those of you who cannot read Rashi script, it's okay. I'll read it to you. The names are not as important as the lineage is, right? These are actually the names of, right? This is the first person on the top is Reuven, the son of Yaakov. He has 4 sons, and then one of the sons has another son, and then he has 3 sons, and then, right, the final one is Nemuel. He has 2 sons and a daughter. Okay, that's going to be our family unit, and this basically shows that when the son dies, right, the red square is the person who dies. The green arrow is the person who's going to inherit him. Okay, so here, we'll go through the pictures and then I'll read the Mishnah. So this is, right, the son dies, right, it says Ben. So the son dies, he does not have any children. The Yerusha, the inheritance, goes up to his father. Okay, that's step number 1. It doesn't go across, it always goes up. So it goes up to his father. The father inherits his son. That's step number 1. Let's say the father died. Okay, so that's the red square. father died, so then, right, so it goes up to the father. Now it goes down to his remaining son. So you see the Yerusha, the green arrow, goes to the brother. Now it goes to the brother because it went up to the father, then down to the brother. Okay, next, let's say that son died. If that son died, now it goes to the sister. Remember we said, if there are no sons, so then it goes to the daughter. Okay, so it goes to the daughter. Now, let's say she is no longer. So then, now remember, it went to the father, it went up, then it went down to the children. Now there are no children, so now it's going to go up again. So it goes up to Eliav. Eliav is the grandfather, okay? After it goes up to Eliav, let's say he died, so now he has two remaining children. So it gets split between those children, okay? Next, let's say they died. If there's a daughter, so it goes to the daughter, okay? Then let's say she dies. So now there's no one left on that, right? On that level. Now we're going to go up again. Okay, we go to Palua or Palo. Okay, we go up to the, now we're up to the great grandfather. Okay, then if he dies, so now again, it goes up to Reuven. Okay, so that's how, and again, it continues up, and then down, and then up, and then down. Okay, so that is the way inheritance works. So now I'm going to read it in the Mishnah. Okay, so the Mishnah tells us on Daf 115, this is the order of inheritance. Okay, the word inheritance is Yerusha. The Yerusha goes as follows. A son comes before the daughter, and all the son's children come before the daughter, right? So if we go to the original person who died, if he had a son, so they inherit before it goes to anybody else. The daughter inherits before the uncle, right? So again, we'll go back. Let's see, how can I? Hold on 1 minute. Where did the daughter? Here, right? So the daughter here is going to get before her uncle is going to get. Okay, so that's what it's saying. The brother of the deceased gets before the uncle of the deceased, right? It goes across it goes to the son, or it goes to the brother of the deceased before it goes up to the grandfather and then down to the uncle. And so to anybody's descendants. So the Mishnah tells us the inheritance always goes up and then down, right? Again, unless the person has children. Obviously, it's going to go down first, but if it can't go down, so then it goes up and then it goes down. Okay. The Gemara tells us that the grandchildren are going to get before the daughter, right? So if the deceased has let's say he doesn't have a son anymore, but he does have a grandson, it's going to go to the grandson before it's going to go to the sister. The daughter of the daughter or the son of the daughter get before the brother of the deceased, right? Again, it's always going to go down on that line before it goes up, and then it goes down again. And then the Gemara tells us, right, a tribe never disappears, right? We have the 12 Shvatim, we have the 12 tribes. There's always going to be somebody who is related to the deceased, right? Because as we saw, it can always go up and up and up, and then out to the uncles and the cousins. And therefore, there's always going to be somebody who can inherit. Whoever says a daughter inherits with the daughter of the son is a tzduki, a Sadducee, right? The tzduki were a sect that started off Jewish, but then kind of went on their own direction because they only accepted the written Torah and not the oral Torah, right? And therefore they didn't understand how these laws worked because it's not so clear in the Torah exactly how this works, and therefore you need the Mishnah and the Gemara to explain exactly how inheritance works, right? We say that the granddaughter inherits before the daughter. Okay. The Gemara says that on the 24th of Tevet, they went back to the original law of inheritance, and it was a very happy day. And it became a day of celebration because the Tzdukim, again, this sect of Jews, was so powerful that they actually controlled the inheritance law. But on the 24th of Tevet, they were able to overthrow the Tzdukim and go back to the original law. So the verse shows us that a grandson is like the son, and therefore the grandson is going to get it before the daughter is going to get it. Okay. Daf 116, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai argued with the Tzdukim, right? There were these debates to see who was right. And Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was one of the people who argued with these Tzdukim. Okay, if one of the sons died before the father, so then the granddaughter inherits the son's portion, right? Again, if there is going to be a son, a daughter, or a grandson or a granddaughter, they are going to get their grandfather's portion or their father's portion before it goes across to any of the brothers. And here the Gemara talks about Shevet Binyamin. If you remember, at the end of the book of Judges, we have a terrible civil war, and many people from the tribe of Benjamin, of Binyamin, are killed. And there are only 600 remaining men. And they make a condition that the granddaughters don't inherit, so that the Binyamin, that the tribes wouldn't lose their inheritance, right? Because there were so few people, they wanted to make sure it stayed with the men, because again, as we said, if the women inherit, it will be transferred to their husbands, who might be from a different shevet, a different tribe, and therefore they're going to lose their land. And therefore, unless the granddaughter was the only remaining relative, so then she could inherit her grandfather. The Gemara tells us that God is angry with people who don't leave a son to inherit them, and this is based on a verse. And then the Gemara says, no, another opinion is it's seen as to not to have yirat Hashem, right? They don't have fear of God. Or maybe we're talking about not leaving a student, right? If a person hasn't taught Torah to anybody, so then they do not have fear of God. Rabbi Yochanan, right, the Gemara tells us, lost all 10 of his children, and he carried around a tooth. But it shows that parents, and he would actually go around and show the tooth to parents who lose a child, and he would say, you should be comforted because at least you only lost one child. I lost 10 children. I don't know if that worked, but apparently he thought it would be comforting. And David, right, he left a son, and when he dies, it says that he rested, shachiv, he rested. Yoav didn't leave a son when he died, and therefore it says that he died, right? Met. It's a much harsher language. The Gemara says, or maybe the difference is that David's son was like him, continued in his ways, as opposed to Yoav. He did have a son, but he didn't continue in his ways. Okay, the Gemara says poverty is worse than 50 plagues. This is actually learned from Eov. The Gemara talks about sickness in a person's house. If you have a sickness in the house, you should go to the wise person, to the chacham, to the sage, and he's going to daven for you. Okay, anyone first in inheritance, his descendants come first. As we said, right, it's going to go down to his children, and a father comes before those, right, the other descendants. So now the Gemara talks about real cases, right? Let's say we have Yishmael and Abraham, who are both alive when Esav dies, right? Again, Esav dies, and we have Yishmael, who is his uncle, and we have Abraham, who was his grandfather. So who gets first, the uncle or the grandfather? So the Gemara teaches the grandfather gets before the uncle. Remember, we said it always is going to go up, and then it will go to the uncle. So Abraham was going to get the estate, Esav's estate, before Yishmael. Let's say you have a grandfather and a brother, right? Again, let's say Esav dies. You have Abraham and you have Yaakov, right? Yaakov is Esav's brother, and right, Abraham is his grandfather. So Abraham is going to get first. Again, it's going to go up and then it goes down. Or no, Yaakov comes before Abraham, and that is actually the law, meaning it goes up one generation, goes down to the brothers, then it goes up and then down to brothers. So the brother, meaning Yaakov, will inherit before the grandfather Abraham. Okay, now we're going to begin a yes, Zohar mentions that Abraham died earlier. Correct. We are not talking literally. We're just talking about names that we know and who would inherit first. But you're right. Abraham died before Esav, before all of the people mentioned. So this is theoretical. This is not literal. Okay. The next Mishnah on the bottom of Daf 116 is going to begin a long discussion about the daughters of Tzlofchad. Bnot Tzlofchad were 5 women who, at the end of Bamidbar, at the end of the book of Numbers, they approach Moshe as Moshe is teaching about who is going to inherit what. And they say, right, and we know that it says that a son inherits the father. So they say, excuse me, Moshe, and they're very polite, but they say, our father died in the desert. Right, our father Tzlofchad, he did not have any sons, and we want his portion, right? We don't want the portion to go back up to his other relatives. We want to inherit him. So that's going to be our discussion now. The Mishnah tells us, right, and the Torah tells us that God says, wait 1 minute, Moshe says, wait 1 minute, I need to ask God what to do. He asks God, and God says, they are correct. They are going to inherit the land that their father was supposed to inherit. So the Mishnah tells us that they inherit 3 portions. One for their father, right, who's Tzlofchad, and one for basically from their grandfather, right? Again, their grandfather is Chefer, and he had a number of sons. We'll see how many, but let's say more than one, right? So Chefer's portion is going to be divided equally among the brothers. One of the brothers is Tzlofchad. He's no longer alive, so the daughters are going to inherit his portion. And not only that, but Tzlofchad was the firstborn. And because he's the firstborn, we learned that he actually gets a double portion. So therefore, they get 2 portions from the father, and then 1 portion from I guess, 2 portions from the grandfather and 1 portion from the father. So they get 3. Okay. So now, Daf 117, we now are going to have a machloket, right? The Gemara tells us who gets a portion of land in Israel, right? Is it based on the people who left Egypt, right? So Chefer left Egypt, Tzlofchad left Egypt, so they are deserving of this portion, right? Or is it according to who is going into Israel, right? Is it based on, right, the children who are going in, or is it based on the people who left Egypt? So that is our discussion. Okay, so the Gemara tells us that this portion was unique, right? Because here, right, dead people who have already passed away, are inheriting the live people, right? Meaning the people who are alive are only getting a portion because of their ancestors who left Egypt, right? And this shows that the land is divided by the number of people going into Israel, but it's then redivided by the fathers, right? By the people who are the generation above, right? So the Gemara is going to show, again, can we prove, is it based on the people who left or the people who are going in, right? Maybe it's divided both to those who left and those who are going in, right? And therefore you get 2 portions, right? And how could that be, right? If a person left Egypt, excuse me, if the person left Egypt at the age of 60, so then if you remember, who died remember the whole generation died in the desert, but the Torah tells us only the people between the ages of 20 and 60. So if you were above 60 or below 20, those people didn't die. So if you were 60 when you left Egypt, you didn't die, and therefore you entered Eretz Yisrael, and you get, right, and maybe you would get a double portion, 1 for leaving Egypt and 1 for going into Israel. Okay, what about the Miraglim, right, the spies, right? The Miraglim are killed in the desert, and the Gemara tells us that Yehoshua and Caleb get their inheritance, meaning the 10 portions that were supposed to go to the 10 Miraglim, the 10 spies, were divided between Yehoshua and Caleb. If you remember, Yehoshua and Caleb tell the truth. They say Israel is yes, it's going to be hard, but we can do it. And therefore they are saved, and all the other spies are killed. The people who complained with Korach, they also don't get portions in Israel, but their children do get portions from their grandparents, meaning not from the people who were killed because they do not get any portion, but the grandparent does get a portion, so they get that inheritance. Okay, Daf 118. The verse says that the numerous will get more and the fewer will get less. So this implies that if more people left Egypt, but now there are fewer people in the tribe, then each person is going to get more land, right? Because they were supposed to get a lot, but now there are fewer people. So they're going to get, each person is going to get much more, and vice versa, right? So this proves that the inheritance goes according to the people who left Egypt and not the number of the people going in. Now, we said that Bnot Tzlofchad, the daughters of Tzlofchad, petitioned Moshe because based on the people leaving Egypt. their father left Egypt, their grandfather left Egypt. But if you want to say that it's based on the people going in, so then they don't have any claim because the women don't inherit a portion and their father is already dead. So they don't have any claim to Moshe. The Gemara says no, but it could be based on their grandfather. Again, they could get the grandfather's portion. Okay, another proof. The children of Yosef, this is the tribe of Menashe, they complained to Moshe also because they are a very big tribe. And they complain that they don't have enough land. This proves that, again, it's going according to the people who left Egypt, right? They were much fewer. So then they don't get a lot of portions, but now they have so many people. So it proves that it goes according to the people who left Egypt. The Gemara says no. They argued because there were a lot of children under 20, and anybody who's under 20 doesn't get their own portion. So it doesn't necessarily have to do with if you left Egypt versus if you're going into Israel. This proves that everyone who entered Israel got a portion, got a nachala, right? Only these two people argued with Moshe. Right, the people of Menashe do not get more land, right? Everything is going to be divided equally, but Bnot Tzlofchad do get their portion. Then the Gemara says maybe other people did argue, but we didn't mention it here because here, here, this is teaching us a different lesson. What's the lesson? That people should be careful of ayin hara, right? What's ayin hara? The evil eye, right? So the evil eye is when people are jealous or people think, bad things towards you. So Yoshua basically, right, the people of Menashe say, listen, we're so big, we need more land. Yoshua says to them when they go into Israel, listen, don't keep talking about how big you are. That's going to bring jealousy. Stop talking about how many people you are. So Yoshua tells them to go hide in the forest. They actually say to him, don't worry, Yoshua, we are the descendants of Joseph. And as you know, the evil eye does not affect the children of Yosef. Why? This is based on the verse, right? It says, when Yaakov gives the children of Yosef a blessing, he says, V'yidgu larov, which means they will multiply a lot, but it has the word dag, right, from fish. They're going to multiply like fish. So the Gemara says, why is Yosef like fish? Because just like fish are covered with water and you can't see the fish, so too the evil eye doesn't affect the children of Yosef. Okay, as we said, Yoshua and Caleb get the inheritance, the portion of the spies. Okay, so now back to Bnot Tzlofchad. So they say, our father died in the desert. And by the way, don't think that he died because he was one of the spies or because he was with Korach, right? He wasn't one of those people. Therefore, he deserves a portion in the land. Okay, now since we're talking about Menashe and the land that they get, the Gemara tells us that there are 6 main families of Menashe. So that's 6. And then the children of Tzlofchad get 4 portions. Now that makes 10 portions of Menashe. So that, again, shows that we're basing it on people who left Egypt. Or really, it's supposed to be 9, because if you remember, we said that Bnot Tzlofchad got 3, not 4. So then the Gemara says, maybe they got 4 because maybe Tzlofchad had a brother who died, and then they get his portion as well. Or maybe he actually had 2 brothers, and that's why they get this extra portion. Okay. Why do we say that they have 10 portions, Menashe? Again, they have many more people going into Israel. And as we said, there are 6 main families of Menashe. Okay, now Daf 119, we prove that the daughters of Tzlofchad get the double portion of Tzlofchad because he is the firstborn. And how could that be? So this is a very beautiful idea. If you remember, we started our class today speaking about inheritance, and you only inherit things that the deceased person owned already, right? You don't inherit something that they are going to inherit in the future. That's not how inheritance works. You only inherit, what's in the bank right now, right? What's in the safety deposit box. How could it be that the daughters of Tzlofchad are inheriting something from their father, but their father died already? So, and he didn't get into the land, so how could it be that they get his portion? So the Gemara says this proves that the land of Israel was already considered in the possession of the people who left Egypt, even though they themselves were not going to enter the land. It's as if they're holding the deed to the land already, which is why, right, it's already considered owned by the people who left Egypt. And therefore, the daughters were able to inherit their father. Okay, the children of the spies and the people who complained with Korach, they are going to get a portion from their mother's father, or based on the people going in, all right, and they get because of themselves, right? Either way, the children are going to get a portion. Okay. Okay, now so now the Gemara continues and talks about the daughters of Tzlofchad, right? It says Moshe didn't know if they should get the double portion, meaning here the Gemara says, obviously Moshe knew that the daughter can inherit the father. That wasn't the issue. He knew that answer, but he didn't know if they could get the double portion from the grandfather, basically, right, through their father. Right? And therefore, they were meritorious to have the laws of inheritance taught through them. But really, Moshe did know the law about the daughters inheriting. The same thing with the Mikoshesh Eitzim. Mikoshesh Eitzim is the person. Again, we're not clear exactly what he did. Did he cut down trees on Shabbat? Did he gather trees on Shabbat? There's actually a midrash that this person is actually Tzlofchad. But in that case, right, Moshe, right, they turn to Moshe and they say, oh no, this person desecrated Shabbat. What do we do? Right? And then Moshe says, I don't know, hold on, let me ask God. So the Gemara says Moshe knew that he was supposed to die. He just didn't know how he was supposed to die, right? There are different ways one could be put to death, right? Stoning, decapitation, hanging, a sreifa, or burning, right? There are 4 ways that of capital punishment. So Moshe knew that he was supposed to die, but he had to ask God, what type of death is he supposed to get? And he was actually stoned. Okay. Why did it know? But they only released it to their children. That they did not get the land because they died in the desert. And if you look at the pasuk, it says that Bnot Tzlofchad asked Moshe, and then they asked the elders, and then they asked. But it basically says they asked a lot of different people, but it has Moshe first. And the Gemara says it doesn't make sense. After they asked Moshe, they asked other people. So the Gemara says, no, it's supposed to be the opposite, right? Meaning they first asked everyone else, and then finally they got to Moshe. Or another option is that they went to the Beit Midrash, right, to the study hall, and they asked Moshe in front of all of the other people that were there. Okay, the Gemara tells us that a teacher can give honor to a student. A person can't honor a student in front of the teacher unless the teacher does it first. The Gemara then tells us that Bnot Tzlofchad were very wise. They waited for the right moment to ask Moshe, right? As we know, it's very important to wait for the right moment. Otherwise, you don't necessarily get what you want. And Moshe was actually teaching Yibum, which goes back to Aliza saying last week that this reminded her of Yibum. So that's exactly what happened. Moshe was teaching about Yibum. And then they said, oh, wait a minute, hold on, right? We're daughters. Do we inherit our father? Right? And they knew how to understand the verses because, right, they say, our father doesn't have a son, but he does have daughters, and therefore we should inherit, right? And they were also very righteous. They only married men from their shevet, right? The end of the story of Bnot Tzlofchad is that the men of the tribe get very upset because they're concerned that they're going to get a portion in the land of Menashe. Then they're going to marry someone from a different tribe. And then when they die, the husband from the other tribe is going to get their land, and the land of Menashe is going to get smaller and smaller. And therefore, they agreed that they were only going to marry men from the same tribe so that the land would stay together. And the Gemara says that they actually waited a very long time till they found the right man from their shevet. And then still funny.
You're breaking up, Rabbanit.
What do you mean?
We're losing you.
Can't even hear you anymore.
You hear me?
No, your mouth is
Oh,
breaking up.
no. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I've won anyway, but the Torah calls Yocheved, right? Yocheved is the mother of Moshe, and they call her Bat Levi, the daughter of Levi. Now, the regular is from the tribe of Levi. But the Gemara here says that she's the actual daughter of Levi, and that she's actually 100 years. However, right, miraculously, she will too conceive and have Moshe, and we will pick it up next week when hopefully I will have better internet about the miraculous birth of Moshe and Yocheved, and more about the daughters of Tzlofchad. Just a reminder, next week I'm actually going to be traveling, so we're going to have class on Sunday night. So that's in a number of days from now. Sunday night at 7 p.m.
Sunday, what's the
Can you
date,
hear?
honey? It's getting confusing.
I will tell you. October 27th.
Okay.
Hold on. October 27th.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And then we will hopefully go back to our regular scheduled Wednesday night. So we won't have class for a while. So I'll try to like keep everything up to date, but we'll do Sunday October 27th, and then we'll go back to Wednesday, meaning the week later, November 6th.
Okay.
I'll send you an email about everything. So, but I want to wish everyone a
Mhm.
Chag Sameach. I think it looks like Zohar is sitting in her sukkah. Are you sitting in your sukkah?
In my husband's sukkah, yeah.
Oh, very nice.
There we go. So,
Yes, I would have loved to have done that, but then I definitely wouldn't have internet. So,
Well, that's why I'm doing this is because the internet is not working in his house. So I'm using my phone, and so I didn't want to bother him. So, but now he went to shul to learn anyway. But that's a different story. I just wanted to,
wow.
I wanted to say that when my husband was learning the Daf Yomi today, and he was saying, "How do we know that Yochevet's 130?" I said, "Well, do the math. She was born when they came into the gates of Mitzrayim, and they were in Mitzrayim for 210 years, and Moshe was 80 years old when they left, so she was 130 when she gave birth to him."
Exactly.
it's great.
Exactly.
That's
Right.
why.
She's the last child born right outside of Egypt.
Right.
Right. She's born as they come in.
So he said, why isn't it mentioned just the same way as Sarah Imenu was mentioned that, she was, 90, so she was so old, whatever, and this is 130. Why is that not mentioned? So I said, well, you have to do the math. That's all.
Exactly. Yeah.
I have a question.
Wow.
Would you please, since you're my teacher, would you please suggest something to read or to study? How far away, you got the Karaites, you said, well, they're not even Jewish anymore. Well, what if they still have that Jewish, but how far away do you have to get before nobody considers you Jewish anymore?
It's a great question. It's a great question. There's a group in Israel called the Samaritans, the Shomronim. They were also originally Jewish. They broke away much earlier. I think what happens is at a certain point you like you start up here, but if you digress so far,
that's the question. That is the
you're
question.
not Jewish.
How far? That's the question.
Right.
When you're thinking about it, or you bump into it, when you text me, it is really confusing to me.
It's also not even so much a matter perhaps of how far, but how it occurs. For example, you've got the Karaites and the Sadducees and the Samaritans willfully rejected rabbinic Judaism, unknowingly did so. Whereas you have other people like the Batra Israel, the Ethiopian, the Kushi, the Sudanite Jews, they also didn't have rabbinic Judaism, but not because they rejected it, because they simply predate it, right? So there was no case of rejection. So although they had practices that were radically different than ours, they're considered full Jews because they didn't do it as a point of willful digression, willful separation. So that's, I think, a very important element.
Excellent.
Can some people?
That's a great point.
I forgot who you are. Where are you?
So if they intermarried, then there you go. Then if they married or Jewish, then their children are not Jewish anymore, and there you go.
But are they still considered Jewish? The mother?
Well,
if it's because she married somebody, but she's still Jewish, but not her children. I don't get that.
No, the other way around.
That's why I said, do you have anything to read or to study? Because surely there's something written on it.
Okay, I'll look for something for you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
All right. Wishing everyone a Chag Sameach.
Yeah, we've got Hoshana Rabbah coming in here in North America tonight. Everybody getting ready for that. So, we're a little behind you. But it's very exciting and it's been beautiful here. And we're very grateful that Hashem has been taking care of the Jews all over the world during this Hag.
Thank you. Yes. It's already Hoshana Rabbah here. Very reminiscent of our days of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And we are able to all study together in the merit of having a Bezrat Hashem, a full redemption very soon.
Yeah.
Amen.
Wishing everyone a Chag Sameach and only
Chag
good
Sameach.
news.
Thank you, Rebbe.
Thanks so much for your excellent summaries. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.